bleeding a little and trying not to cry. I realised the pellet was still near his leg as I knelt down beside him. "You lot, fuck off," I shouted to the gathering crowd. "Graham, get me my bag." He did, and I pulled out my penknife that I kept for scouts as a spare, a long folding fishing knife with a thin blade. No, Stuart quivered. "Relax, mate, I've got to get the pellet out, or you'll get lead poisoning," I told him. What I actually meant was, "or they will have proof I shot you." No, he rattled off again, getting rather animated, waving his arms around. I held the blade up a few inches from his face so he could see it clearly. "Sit still," I said calmly. He did. "Graham, hold his legs still," I asked. No man, fuck no, I ain't having no part of this," he told me, backing off. I dug the pellet out and chucked it into the hedge a few metres away, cleaned my knife and put the gun and the knife in a carrier bag. I'd ditch it later and come back for it after school. Then I had to square things with Stuart, so I didn't have problems later on. "Sorry, mate. Listen up though, yeah? It was dumb to shoot you. You did nothing wrong." He said, "I know, man. Fuck, man. Why did you?" He was genuinely confused, and I couldn't blame him. I would have been too. "Shut up, right? What I'm saying is, I'm sorry, and I hope we're cool. But if we're not, and you're pissed at me, don't come looking. You know what I'm saying?" I told him directly. "Dude, you shot me," he said, looking down at his leg, now red with a tiny little hole in it. "If you come looking, I'll fuck you up. It's that simple, okay?" I said, leaning into his face. "Okay," he said. I was convinced I was okay as far as Stuart was concerned, but it wasn't him I was worried about. People tend to have friends. It was them that I was worried about. I'd had a visit from 2 NSPCC workers who asked me a ton of stupid questions. I'd ignored them all. One male, balding, mid-30s, and a female who was younger and cute. It was the first time I'd made a mistake about talking. The guy was the boss, and he'd tried everything, from "do you like school?" to "how much do you like scouts?" Nice try. I wasn't playing. I sat looking through him in a little room at Social Services Base rented especially for my little visit. They had a box to tick, and I didn't want to be it. "On a ratio of 1 to 10, how much do you miss your mum?" the male asked me. I hadn't expected the question, and he caught me off guard. I'd opened my mouth to speak, but stopped myself. I leaned forward, staring at him, and made as if I was going to speak again. "It's okay," he said. "Go on," he added. Nice try. I opened my mouth again, and closed it, leaning back, placing my arms along the chair. I flashed him my biggest grin and held it. "Fuck you." "I've had enough of this," he said. I held the grin. "It's a shame you refused to talk," the lass said. Smart girl. She knew I was choosing not to, and not because I couldn't. "Because I know what it's like in care. You're not the only one," she added. My intrigue was spiked. I checked her eyes, and she wasn't lying. "Well, if you won't talk to us, we can't make you," the guy said, picking up his pad. I pointed at the woman and kept my eyes on him. "I talked to her and her only." He almost jumped out of his skin as I'd made a full sentence. "It's not how it works," he said. "See ya," I replied, leaning back and crossing my legs. "It's okay, go for a cigarette," the cute girl said, cocking her head at him. He left in a huff. "Sorry," she said, as it's the first time I'd heard an apology in a long time. "You wanted to talk to me?" she added, straightening her black trousers and leaning forwards on her elbows. I wondered what the best way to take this was. I had no idea. I didn't like talking. "He's your boss?" I asked. "Yeah, he is," she said. "Then I'm sorry if I got you in trouble." I told her. "It's okay." She shrugged, fake smiling. She had nice eyes. They were warm. "He's an arsehole," I told her. "Sometimes," she laughed. I did too. "You said you grew up in care?" I asked her. "Yeah, I did," she said. We chatted for a while, during which time she told me she loved skiing and ended up getting along okay with the people she grew up with. She picked me up a few times and chat, but I'd never give anything away. I told her I wanted to be with my family. I also told her she was cute. She told me she had a boyfriend, but she still let me play Spiders, You and Me Against the World Now song in the car on repeat. I never let her closer than that. I couldn't tell her about the abuse, or about my plans to run away. I'd met Stoppy and his dog Buster again at lunchtime and agreed. That's when I was ready when I was ready I would look him up. Keel knew where he lived, so any time I wanted to leave Brenda's, his was ready to take me there. I asked the NSPCC worker again how she'd learnt to get along in care, because Brenda and I are so different. That's when she told me. My mum was a foster mother like Brenda. We had care kids around all the time, so it wasn't that hard to fit in. That hurt. I trusted her and I'd been stung again. Okay, I said, and that was the last thing I ever said to her. She tried talking, and I refused to talk, on 2 other occasions, and then they were cancelled. I'm a job, just a job, someone's wage, that's all. I was in another therapy session with a guy called Alan, who was a top-notch specialist in child behaviour, apparently. I had high hopes for him as he was based in Macclesfield. He had the same name as my grandfather. Grey suit, clipboard, quite tall and thin. He kept checking the clipboard and would forcefully make eye contact when he wanted answers and randomly look away when he was trying not to pretend he was getting nowhere. I didn't have anything concrete to dislike, but I had no reason to trust him either. I did my usual routine of staying silent, and then after 15 minutes he informed me that I'm going to see a new guy called Nigel today, but only if I wanted to. I ignored him. Nigel's not a therapist. He works differently to me. He makes things. Do you like to make things? He was baby-talking me. When will these people learn? My father killed my mother, mate. There's nothing your books can teach me. A few weeks earlier, I'd seen Doris Tones. It's, I can say this now, actually. It's, I wrote Doris Tones. It's Dora Black, the leading psychologist of When Father Kills Mother, and to be fair, she was really, really good. She was really, really good. Bear in mind, this book is based on things from the past, and I have the therapist notes of this. Everything is accurate. She was a diamond, but this is the story as told from when I was back there. A few weeks earlier, I'd see Doris Tones, the leading psychologist of When Father Kills Mother. To be fair, she wasn't bad, and she did get me to talk. She was a damn sight better than half of these so-called professionals. I have the notes to this day, and part of the communication goes. Tracie. Me asking, do you believe in ghosts? There could be, I don't know, she said. I didn't believe in what I knew as ghosts back then. I knew they existed. I'd seen my nan. She was a ghost. Alive, but dead. A ghost. Mum I'd seen in visions all over the place, covered in blood. Not a ghost. My mind. Bad images. I knew the difference. The results came back that I was preoccupied with the past and couldn't move on until I'd spoken about it. The self-harm stemmed from blaming myself for my mother's death. No shit. That and growing up with a psychopath and killing my granddad. It told me nothing that I didn't already know. The door opened and Nigel came in. A big man. White, but looked grey due to the amount of clay and paint covering his arms and clothes. Some was in his hair. Brown shoes, one damaged, and brown trousers. Dirty with a dirty shirt. His hair was all over the place. Hi Tracie, you come in, he said and plodded down the hall. He didn't wait for a reply. I liked him. I watched his trousers as he walked. A big, powerful man. He was slow by choice. He could move fast. You smoke? He asked, totally throwing me off guard. I'm 13, I replied. Asked if you smoke, he said. I laughed and shook my head. Terrible habit, he said. Mind if I do? He asked, opening the back door, and went to walk outside, where he immediately banged his foot. Shit, he said loudly. There was no threat in his voice. I laughed. Fucking hate it when that happens, he added. My attraction grew. He was a Mac lad, and my appointment was at Macclesfield General Hospital, where we were born. He worked here daily, and he understood Mac rules. I'd have to test him, but I could see me talking to this guy. Okay, Tracie, what'd you like to be called? He asked. Dunno, I replied, shrugging my shoulders. Okay, dunno, here's the rules, he said, not skipping a beat. Swearing is loud in my room. Not anywhere else unless it's just me and you. Don't be late without a good reason. It upsets other people that see me and means I can't have a fag. And finally, he said, exhaling smoke into the sky, do what you want, but ask first. Paint, draw, make clay objects, or talk, or don't talk. It's up to you. But if we don't do something for 3 sessions, it's over, and I have to see someone else instead. Okay? He said. Sounds fair, I nodded. Cool. Let's see the room then. In here you do what you want. It's your room. Nothing is wrong. No opinion is wrong, no matter how bad it is or how wrong it sounds. Oh, no feeling is wrong either. He said it with amazing conviction. He meant every word. He pushed the door open, and before me was a desk with a notepad on it, pens and pencils, one chair. To my right was a huge long shelf at waist height to draw on, sit at, make things. It was dirty. Beside it were hundreds of pictures, and to my left was a shelf full of clay items. The floor was bare apart from a chair in the middle of the room, a box of toys beneath the desk which I'd later discover held army men and cars, and a big box of air-drying clay. "Where do you want to sit? Or do you want to sit?" he asked me. I hate choice. Must be a trick. Nobody gave me a choice. My choices were get slapped or get insulted, drop someone or get dropped. I didn't have choices. "No answer is wrong," he repeated. I could see his chair from mine a mile away. His was at the desk, mine was in the middle of the room. I pointed to his chair. "Okay, can I sit there?" he said, grabbing his pad and pen and moving to the chair in the middle of the room. I felt uncomfortable. "You're the boss. Do you like the room?" he asked. I stood up and walked around. "It's dirty," I said, looking at his cup covered in clay and half-drank coffee. "Aye, but it's fun. Want a brew?" he said. A brew? In therapy? Amazing. I'd never been asked if I wanted a drink in any of the other sessions, unless as a means to get me to talk. We had 2 sessions that stayed along that level of chat. I liked Nigel a lot. In one session I made a clay skull. Nigel asked me why I'd made it and I couldn't tell him. I didn't know. He asked if I'd like to add anything to it. I was scared. What if Brenda knew I'd made a skull? She already didn't like me drawing scary pictures. I wanted to add a dagger to it right through the head. Nigel agreed. He'd keep it for me, and we could do that next week. I'm Tracie Daly. And what sticks out for me, not just here, but in an interview that I did with that lady yesterday, big point was she asked me a question. Do I want to add anything else? Considering this interview could potentially be used to help social workers or police or whoever handle people that are going through into the system, maybe even foster carers. And I said to her, I'll be honest with you, 50% I don't think are even going to listen to it. You know, of those 50%, 10% might actually take it in. I said, my faith in people isn't exactly huge. I said, but if 5% of those 10%, of those 50%, out of that 100% take it on board and do something with it, there's one thing I want them to remember. If a child comes to a therapy session and people have said he's mute and he sits there for 10 sessions and says fuck all, says nothing, don't pull the funding. He is figuring you out. He is trying to suss out who and when to speak to. He is trying to figure out who and what is going on with himself. Don't pull the funding. Get him another 10 sessions or get him another therapist with another 10 sessions. Don't pull the funding. This guy, Nigel, changed my life completely. I'm Tracie Daly. Take care of yourselves and each other.